Welcome back, everyone. We're doing the spoiler section for Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. If you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably stop watching, because we're going to spoil it. And we're going to talk about things that you really shouldn't know going into the movie. So go back and watch our other video linked right here. And then come back and watch this one after you've seen the movie. Well, let's get started with the spoileriness.
So in the movie, Shuri's mother dies, and she's already had the traumatic experience of her brother dying, and it's easy for her to feel vengeful, and you can see why that's the case through everything she's experiencing in the movie.
I loved the line where M'Baku said, she calls herself a child, and he says, "The world has done too many harsh things to you to consider you a child."
Yeah.
And that's true. She is absolutely blasted with hardships.
And that way I could see some of her motivations for wanting to kill Namor. And at the end of the movie, there's the scene when she's debating killing him. She's got her spear to his throat. And then you start seeing flashbacks of all of the damage that he's done. But it's interesting because they're playing it in reverse. It's a moment where I think she's realizing that those things aren't going to not happen after she kills him. Yeah.
Interesting. I
I loved that theme of just like two negatives don't equal a positive. Only in math when you're multiplying.
Chris actually has a bit of beef with that moment.
I do. But I will say, I thought that the scene you're talking about with the bad stuff in reverse was a really interesting thing. I want to know what you thought about that. Put it in the comments. What did you think when you saw that? Because I thought your take was interesting, because that wasn't my take. I was thinking of her looking to the future, like what other consequences are going to come from this action right now? But if I don't do it, any of those are going to come back to this moment. Like, everything goes back to a moment. This happened because that happened. This happened because that happened. But as you go back and back and back, bad things, they aren't there yet. And so I thought she was thinking right then, like, if I do this now, bad things are going to come down the line. But if I don't do this now, they won't. And so I like your interpretation, maybe better than mine. So that's why I'm interested to know what you guys think about that moment. Because I thought that was an interesting thing to do, visually and storytelling. And I think it kind of left it open to your interpretation. I think a lot of people could take a lot of things from that.
It was definitely intentional, because usually when they show flashbacks, they don't do it in reverse like that.
Right, no.
So there was something they were trying to say there.
For sure. My problem with that moment was simply that Shuri's downward spiral is just going through the whole film. It starts already low because of T'Challa's death, and because that death rocked her, not just on a familial level, but like she prays in the first scene to their God that he'll allow her to save him. And she says, "I'll never doubt you again." And then he dies. And so, like, she's been shattered on, like, a family level, but also, like, on a religious level and, like, a tradition level. And, she is... So she starts low already. And as the movie goes on, it gets worse and worse and worse. She becomes filled with rage. And everything with Killmonger that happens in this movie is a brilliant way of feeding into that downward spiral. And so when we get to that moment where she's ready to kill him, in my heart I'm saying, you can't do that. You'll be the next Killmonger if you do that. But in my mind I'm thinking, it doesn't make sense for her,
based on her character,
based on this direction she's been going, for her to be there, and suddenly now she flips a switch and is like, okay, I'm not going to do that. That was just a little bit not enough for me. It was a little unbelievable, given what she had been doing, for her to finally decide, because she thought of her mom once, or because she thought of a bunch of things in reverse, that she would decide not to do it right. She didn't
think of her mom.
Yeah,
her mom appeared to her in the ancestral plane.
That's what I thought was happening too.
But I thought, since it was Killmonger who kind of continued to drag her down this spiral, it would have made more sense, and it would have felt more impactful if it was T'Challa that was the one who reached out to her on the ancestral plane and helped her to change.
And we talked about that on the drive home, and we thought the moral implications of using Chadwick Boseman's image,
the problem is
would have, like, people would have been distracted by that, and rightly so. Like, that might not have been a sensitive thing to do, but they could even have just used flashback images like they do on the beach at the end. They could have had her just remember her brother. They had her thinking about her conversation with Killmonger in the Ancestral Plane, which, by the way, was a brilliant stroke. We haven't even talked about that, but that's probably, like, one of the biggest spoilers of the film is that Michael B. Jordan is back playing Killmonger on the Ancestral Plane. That was a brilliant move.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's a great way to bring that character back. But for her in that moment to be remembering back to her conversation with him, but then to be thinking of images of T'Challa and weighing in her mind, am I going to be T'Challa or am I going to be Killmonger? Yeah, that would have been more impactful, I think, than remembering her mother.
And I don't think you can argue that it wouldn't have been more impactful, but you just can't really do that.
I don't know. I feel like her mother appearing to her on the Ancestral Plane is like, it would have a bigger impact. It was more convincing for me than her remembering her brother. That's just not a gripe I have, I guess.
No, it's fine. That's good.
Yeah. Well, you can't be our brother anymore, so...
Yeah.
No, I'm guessing it will work for most people. I just...
Yeah,
I didn't totally buy it, because you didn't have a problem with that.
Well, I did have the thought beforehand that it would have been more impactful if it was Chadwick Boseman. I thought that while it was happening. But
do you feel like it would have been more impactful changing her mind if her brother appeared on the Ancestral Plane?
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, yeah.
More than her mother appearing on the Ancestral Plane.
Remembering moments with her brother is like...
Right, well, that would have been like the more tasteful way to try to do it.
Of getting around the fact that we're using...
Even though it's a more tasteful way, it would be less convincing.
That's the thing, is I think this is probably the best way to do it, the way they did it. But it would have been better if they could have brought back Chadwick Boseman on the Ancestral Plane, but you just can't really do that because that's weird.
Yeah. What? Making money on the image and likeness of a man who died in real life?
Yeah. I also think that they could have had a moment where they didn't have to use a computer animated person. I think that the moment when she's on the beach at the end, and the speech that her mom gave her while they were at the lakeside in Wakanda, and she talked about Chadwick Boseman's or T'Challa's like presence being there in like the wind and like the sound and all the environment around her, and it felt like his hand was like on her shoulder. If the movie right before it cut to black, you just saw someone's hand like rest on her shoulder, and then it cut to black. That would have been a really cool way to have T'Challa.
Even if it was Angela Bassett's hand that rested on her shoulder.
No, I want it to be T'Challa's.
Either
but
way.
It would have. We did actually decide too that it would have made more sense since she was mourning the loss of her mother, for the hand to have been her mother's hand, and for Chadwick Boseman to be on the Ancestral Plane. But the way they did it is probably actually the best way you can. So. What did we just say?
Yeah, there was a lot there.
I love how it ended in this ambiguous way. Baku comes in, and it's like...
It's just like, I'm the new king.
Does that mean that he's going to now be the new Panther, and she's giving it up? Does she realize that, like, she is more prone to that Killmonger ancestral plane, and that she... Because in that moment where they talk to each other about what they should do about Namor, it's very clear that he is a more wise leader than she is. And she is a very reactionary and vengeful leader, and I wonder if at the end of this movie that's what's happening, is she's giving it up to someone that she thinks is a better leader, which is an interesting thing to do.
I will say that I think it's possible that she still stays Black Panther even if she's not the ruler of Wakanda, if she gives it up to him, because T'Challa was Black Panther even while his father was king. His father had been Black Panther, but at some point T'Challa took over being Black Panther before he was actually king.
Yes, but they were never Black Panther at the same time.
Right. So I'm saying she could stay Black Panther and be Wakanda's protector, and he could be the king. Yeah.
Is there other things we want to talk about?
I really like the mid-credits scene.
Me too.
I thought that was interesting.
Really great.
There was no setup for that.
No.
But it did answer why
She
T'Challa's,
left.
One True Love didn't come to the funeral. Like,
And she just kind of left afterwards. Because
So
that didn't really make sense.
It answered that, but it also gave the movie kind of an emotional coda that felt better to end on. Like,
Yeah.
I noticed that when the movie ended, I was like, okay. But then after the mid-credit scene, I was like, okay. Like, that felt like a better emotionally satisfying way to conclude the film.
I didn't feel the need to try to start clapping. I start the clap at every movie ever that I go to. And a lot of times I'm the only one there clapping. But yeah, I didn't feel the need to clap at the end of the movie, but at the end of the mid-credits scene.
You did.
I did.
Yeah. The mid-credit scene has a way more satisfying conclusion.
And I started that clap and we all stood up and said, Ibombe!
Oh, man, they love saying that.
I have one spoilery gripe. About 2 hours into the movie, I leaned over to Caleb and I was like, isn't there supposed to be like a new Black Panther?
Is this a Black Panther movie?
Is this the movie with the Black Panther?
Yeah. And I just and I get that there were story things that had to happen in order for her to get to the point where she needed to become the new Black Panther, but you just don't see a lot of any Black Panthers in this movie for very long for a Black Panther movie.
That is true.
When Shuri's talking to her mother, they're talking about the death of her brother, and basically the mom says that she can feel his presence occasionally. And then Shuri responds and is like,
He wasn't there.
yeah, Mom, this is a construct of your mind. And I liked the mom's response about
What does your
construct do for you? Is it bringing you peace, or is it bringing you fear or something like that? Tormenting you, yeah. And that was a very powerful and poignant moment. You can't convince them that there's life after death. Some people, like, I don't know. But I thought it was a good point that, like, some, like...
Even if there isn't
life after death, what is that belief doing for you?
It's still affecting you.
Yeah.
That's true.
And the way that you're shutting it out is making it worse. That is interesting. So, everyone, what did you think of Black Panther 2? Did you like it? Did you love it? Do you want some more of it? Anyway, until next time, are we all done then?
Yes, we're done.
Yeah.